had 18 lessons on Node and JavaScript, and it's time for a review. We have a lot to review, so I'll be going through it pretty quickly. But the items on the slides show which lesson each concept was introduced in. So if there's anything you need to brush up on, you can always go back to that video. Also, be sure to check in all of your code to GitHub so you'll always have it available when you need it. We learned how to install an NPM package using the command npm install-g and then the name of the package. That installs the Node package globally, which means in the Node modules folder of your computer. You can also install a package locally by taking away the -g command. We also learned how to uninstall a package. We learned how to initialize a Node project by using the command npm init-y, which initializes a folder as a Node project and adds a package.json file to the project. We learned how to run a JavaScript file using the node command, node and then name of the file .js. We learned that the 2 forward slashes are used for commenting code. Everything in the line after the 2 slashes will be ignored when you are running the code. We learned how to do a console.log statement, which prints everything in the parentheses and quote marks into the console. We learned how to log the value of a variable with console.log and then x. That will print the value of the x variable to the console. We learned about data types, numbers such as 5, strings such as hello, and booleans, which are true or false. We learned how to declare a variable with the let command. Let x equal 6 declares the variable x and assigns 6 to it. We also learned how to reassign a variable. If we say x equals 7, the x variable now equals 7. We learned about the constant command, which assigns a variable as a constant, meaning that that variable cannot change. We learned how to use math operations to add up different variables. So let z equals x plus y adds the values of x and y and sets them to a variable called z. We learned how to create string variables. So if we say let word equal hello, now that word variable equals hello. We learned how to concatenate 2 strings together. So phrase, if we create a phrase variable, we can add up the word plus an empty space plus the new word, and it will chain them together into a phrase. We learned an if statement. So if something like y is greater than x, and then inside the brackets, the code is executed only if the if statement is true. We learned how to create a for loop where we're declaring x to be 1, for example, and then saying we want x to be less than 5 in order for the for loop to run, and then x plus plus, meaning that we're adding 1 to the x variable each time we run the loop. And then inside the brackets, console.log x is the code that is executed every time the loop runs. We learned about arrays. So we could create an array called fruits that has 3 different items in it, apple, orange, and pear. We learned how to calculate the length of the fruits array by saying fruits.length. We learned how to add a fruit to the list of fruits by saying fruits.push and then grape. We learned how to remove the last item in a fruits array by saying fruits.pop. We also learned how to reference an item in an array by using the number of the item in square brackets. And we learned that the first item in an array is always 0. So when we say fruits 0, we're accessing the first fruit in the array. We learned how to create an object, and we created a pet object that had a name and a type. And the characteristics of the object were found inside the curly braces. We learned how to reference part of an object in an array. So when we say cats1.name, we were looking for the name of the second cat in the cats array. We learned how to create functions. And the name of the function we created here was my first function. And then inside the curly braces is the action that the function does when it is called. We learned how to create a function and pass in variables into the function. And so in this case, the function add two numbers will take two variables passed in, x and y, and will return the sum of those two numbers. We learned how to create a class. Here is a cat class, and it has a constructor that takes in name and age and creates the name and the age of the cat. We learned how to use the cat class to create a cat by saying const my first cat equals new cat, and then passing in the new cat's name and age. We learned how to create methods inside a class. One of the methods we created was meow, which calls a method called meow in the cat class. So when we said my first cat dot meow, we were asking that cat to meow. We also learned how to do exports. We exported a dog class so that it could be used in other files. And we learned how to require that export so that we could use a dog class in the other files. And we learned how to require an NPM module in a JavaScript file so that we could use whatever that NPM module does. Congratulations, you are now ready to learn test automation with Cypress. If you've been with me from the beginning, you've gone through 38 lessons to get here, through learning the command line, learning to work with GitHub, learning Node.js, and learning JavaScript. Join me next week when we will start our Cypress adventure. Thanks for watching this video. If you found my training helpful, please like this video and share it with others. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single lesson. If you're enjoying Monday Morning Automation and you'd like to learn even faster, be sure to check out my book, The Complete Software Tester, which is available in Kindle and paperback on Amazon.com.